Alright boys, welcome back to the BBR. Unfortunately, last week we lost to Dr. Slocking. We didn't play the best. It was probably the worst performance we've had thus far. Got a little bit unlucky with the Scald burn, but it's Scald, it is what it is. So we move from 9th seed at 1-3 to 10th seed at 1-4. Playoffs is still extremely possible. However, there is someone that stands in our way. This week, it's going to be Viz, who is a fantastic battler, currently undefeated. Check him out, top right-hand corner down below if you have not already. If you missed it, we made a ton of transactions, and we actually have what I think is the first good matchup of the season. I've got in my bag for this one, and I think that I made a pretty good team, and I had fun. Honestly, the matchup is definitely in our favor. I'm very excited to get into this. We're bringing some really cool stuff. I'm very pumped for this match. Like I said, currently 10th seed, we probably need to win out to make playoffs, but to be completely honest, we can probably lose one of our next 3 games to still make playoffs because our differential is so much better than everybody else who's 1-4 or 1-3. So do we want to win? Yes. Do I think we can win? Yes. Do we have to win? Not necessarily. If we lose by like -1 or -2, we are still very much in the playoff race, and we could be the 1, 3, and 5 team to make it because there's currently 3 undefeated teams. So there's a high probability that we can still make the playoffs. But I don't plan to lose this week. Viz, fantastic battler he might be. I know we have the team to beat him this week, so let's talk about it. But before that, only 45% of the people that watch my videos are subscribed. If you have not already, you're watching a team builder, man. Only the real ones watch team builders. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button and help me to my goal of 3,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'll be honest, I went through and I edited last week too. Before I talk about this, let's just have a one-on-one, right? I went through and I edited last week. I didn't really include me talking about it too much, but last Sunday was a horrible day for me. It was like, let me back up a little bit. Kurt, one of my best friends, he uploads VGC, and one of his videos he talked about how Pokemon is very heavily a game of mental, right? Like, you go in, you have to have a good attitude to win the game. If you have a bad attitude or you think you're not going to win, you're probably not. And I had a horrible attitude that day. Nothing was going right, and I just wanted the day to be over. And unfortunately, I had to play a Pokemon game, and I don't think we made any super bad misplays, but I do think that I didn't play to the best of my ability because of how poor of a day I was having. Not taking anything away from Slocking, he definitely deserved the win, but I do think if I go back in time, we could do it on a different day. I think I would have performed a little bit better. Today, however, boys, I'm feeling great. I'm loving our matchup, so we're going in with a positive attitude, trying to pull this one out. Viz's team is gonna be a very good sand team. He's got Excadrill, Zapdos, Kyurem, Gardevoir, regular Ogerpon, Urshifushi, Tyranitar, Slowking, Smeargle, and Houndstone. And if you missed it, our transactions are up on screen now, but our new team consists of the same big 3. We have Dragapult, we have Chi-Yu, and we have Lando T. And we managed to keep Scizor while pulling in Galarian Slowking. And we now have Screamtail, Terra Bernardo with Water and Fire, Rotom Wash. We unfortunately kept Bramblegast because I knew there would be a mob outside of my house if I did not. And then we have Cramorant because I like him. He's funny. He's kind of like the team cheerleader. Our team's great now. Unfortunately, we picked up things like Galarian Slowking in a very poor matchup for Galarian Slowking against Sand. But I'm going to talk about Viz's team, and then we'll go more in depth about my team. Let's start with the one Pokemon that I think no matter what team I bring into this team, we're going to have a hard time with, and it's going to be Urshifushi. Our team very much so struggles with water types. We do have Terra Water Inboard to alleviate the pressure a little bit, but Rotom Wash kind of gets smoked by Urshifu. He could be Swords Dance Trailblaze, he could be Banded, he could be Scarf. We really just have to play around to find what specific set he is going to be, because there's so many that do well in the matchup. He needs Dual Stab, Ice Move, and he could be Trailblaze, or he could be Swords Dance, or he could be Banded. It's very tough, and there's not realistically a great way around Urshifu in this matchup. That Pokemon on its own does probably the best in the matchup, and I really have a hard time seeing any situation where Urshifu does not come. The next mon that I think comes specifically because if it doesn't, he has a bad Chi-Yu matchup, is going to be Tyranitar. Tyranitar can switch in the Chi-Yu pretty seamlessly. He could probably be a special set this week, like Rocks 3 attacks, to absorb maybe a Will-O-Wisp or a Lava Plume from our Chi-Yu and work with it that way. It could also be his lead. He could also be something like a Rock Polish set or a Banded set. In general, Tyranitar's stabs do very well into us, and we don't have the best Dark Resist anymore with our new team. It could also be something like AV to take on a Specs Dragapult, which does very well in the matchup a little bit better. And the next mon that I do think comes is going to be Terra Ghost Houndstone. I underrated this a lot, but shout out to Obo for giving me a couple mocks. We didn't do too many this week, but for spanking me with Terra Ghost Houndstone. So I absolutely saw the vision of how good this Pokemon was into my team that had one Chi-Yu Ghost Resist. I'll be honest, I think he's Terra Ghost with Bandit, and he's going to be Shadow Sneak, he's going to be Play Rough, he's going to be Poltergeist, and he's going to be Terra Blast. I think that's realistically the only moves he needs. He could also be Body Press over Play Rough to hit Archie-U, but generally speaking, this Pokemon in Sand does so well into me. I don't necessarily think he's going to bring Smooth Rock Tyranitar, but I don't think he needs to, because this Pokemon outspeeds pretty much everything in the Sand, and it's very difficult for me to work around. Next up, I think this Pokemon always comes, again, it's going to be Zapdos. I think these first four are very set in stone. Zapdos does so good into my team, can U-turn on Landorus, and I don't have great dual stab resists otherwise. And then the last two slots are pretty up in the air. I have Excadrill and Kyurem for the last two slots. Excadrill, I think, could be Scarf Moldbreaker for my Rotom Wash. I think that makes a lot of sense. Sand Rush doesn't necessarily do great into Lando Rotom, but Moldbreaker would make a lot of sense, and he could be something like Rocks or Spin tacked on, just to have some form of utility. And then the last one is Kyurem. I'm not confident Kyurem comes. It could also be Ogerpon or Gardevoir, both of which make sense. Even Slowking makes sense. I don't think Smeargle comes. If it does, I'm thrown off a little bit. With that last slot completely up in the air, Kyurem does get stuffed by Screamtail, but so does Gardevoir, and then Ogerpon gets stuffed by Bernardo. So that last slot's really going to be up to how he wants to play. Does he want Kyurem for the immediate breaking power, Gardevoir for the Scarf Revenge? Does he want Ogerpon for some form of like hazards, spikes, or some other form of a win con with Swords Dance Trailblaze? All of which make a ton of sense. As for our team, I'm going to give some brief thoughts. My first thought is Dragapult goes crazy. His speed tiers are not very good, so Dragapult's going to be fantastic here. Slowking Galar, unfortunately, cannot come into Sand, Tyranitar, Urshifu Rabbit. It's very difficult to fit Glowking on this team, and it's very sad because I'm very excited that we got Glowking, but I don't think it ever comes here. The one benefit would have been Chilly Reception, but I do think the 6 that we're bringing have more value than that. Chi-Yu is going to be a very tough bring into this matchup. Obviously, Sand plus T-Tar makes it a little bit less than ideal. And then lastly, Bernardo, our new Terra Captain, Terra Fire and Water, does fantastic. There are so many different sets, and I'm so excited to talk about ours. And speaking of, it's our first Pokemon, Bernardo's debut. We're going to be Terra Water to throw off the Urshifu Rapid a little bit. Surging Strike still does a ton of damage, especially if he's banded, because the crits can go through our bulk up. However, we are Terra Water to actually potentially take one of those and do massive damage back. We're going to be a really fun set this week, and we're probably going to be lead. It's between this and 2 other Pokemon, which is literally half my team, but ideally, if we see Tyranitar, this is the Pokemon we're going to lead in case that Tyranitar is led to counter our Chi-Yu. We're going to be Sub, Bulk Up, Drain Punch, and Head Smash. So my thought process here was the initial switch into this Pokemon is either going to be a bulky Houndstone, which I don't really think bulky comes in this matchup, especially because Fluffy makes you weak to fire, or it's going to be Zapdos. And it's so fun because I do not think you can be Volt Switch Zapdos in this matchup. If you are, you're Volt Switch and U-turn into the Lando, which is really weird, or we can take advantage of you being Volt Switch, not U-turn. So we have Reckless Head Smash, and we have enough attack to guarantee KO a Zapdos after sand damage with Head Smash. Very excited about this set. Otherwise, his team is extremely physical, so we can bulk up in the face of things like Tyranitar very, very easily and get a Drain Punch off and get some recovery. We have leftovers, so the Sand Chip doesn't really hurt us, and if there's no sand, we're able to get recovery in some fashion other than Drain Punch, and I'm so excited for this set, man. I have had so much fun building this specific set. We're 160 HP, 232 attack adamant, 16 defense, 48 special defense, and 52 speed. Like I said, we Oko max physically defensive Zapdos with a Head Smash after Sand. And Head Smash is really cool coverage too because it also hits the Gardevoir and the Slowking for very good damage. And because we're Terra Water, we can actually get at least one bulk up in the face of Slowking before we throw off the Head Smash. And because the bulkier Houndstone does kind of beat this set, we are actually going to be enough HP, unfortunately, to not have Nightshade from Houndstone break our sub, which is a little not really what I wanted because Drain Punch recovery, if you don't know, it's better to invest in your defenses rather than your HP, so you gain more back and you take hits a little bit better. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. I do think it was very valuable to have Nightshade Houndstone not break our sub, so we went 160 HP for that. And in case he is bulky, we outspeeded 24 speed Houndstone. I think that's pretty important because obviously we want to bulk up in the face of that Houndstone. We can live a non-specs Kyurem Draco after Rocks. And then we had some leftovers, so we put the remaining 40 in special defense. And like I said, this is the most fun I've had building a set since probably Slowking Galler and GBU. And even then, that set didn't really do well because the team around it I didn't have fun prepping. This team overall, I had so much fun prepping. This is going to be our probable lead. It really depends on what 6 he brings, but probable lead if we see the combination of Ogerpon and Tyranitar. And this could be our win con. If there's like no Zapdos, this could easily be our win con. Our next Pokemon is going to be for that Zapdos. It's going to be Zaba the Landorus, and we're going to be an Assault Vested set this week with U-Turn, Earthquake, Stone Edge, and Smackdown, but the combination of Smackdown and Stone Edge, because if we're faster than Zapdos, we can fire off those Stone Edges. If he's physically defensive Zapdos, we actually can't break him, probably with 8 Stone Edges, with the combination of missing as well as roosts, so we're Smackdown to punish him with potential Earthquake spam if that's the case. And Edgequake just does very well into his team. We didn't really need anything else. The only thing we don't hit great, it's going to be Urshifu, it's going to be Ogerpon, and both of which we can U-turn on, and obviously we don't really want to stay in on the Urshifu. We do have to be careful because Ogerpon does have Defiant, and it can be pretty scary, and if we see Ogerpon, we are never leading Landorus, but if we don't see Ogerpon, Landorus is another contender to be one of our leads. And we're AV to alleviate pressure on Zapdos because otherwise we don't really have a lot for it, to be completely honest. We're going to be 40 HP, 184 attack adamant, 68 defense, 112 special defense, and 104 speed. Not only does this help with the Zapdos, but it also very much so helps with the Excadrill if that gets out of hand, and it also outspeeds a lot of his team and can deal damage to things that might be slower. It invites in the Kyurem, but like I said, we have some really good checks for Kyurem in the back. We can outspeed max speed T-Tar, we can live 2 Life Orb Adamant Excadrill Iron Heads at -1, and we live 2 offensive Zapdos Hurricanes after rocks. I don't really think he's going to be an offensive Zapdos, but the possibility is there because Zapdos does absolutely destroy us. He could just be something like Boots, Roost, U-Turn, Dual Stab, and that does do very, very well. So I'm curious to see how he uses the Zapdos in this matchup, but we can take 3 defensive Zapdos Hurricanes, which is really nice. Next up, we're going to have big squiggly buff, the Screamtail. Screamtail is fantastic in this matchup because it completely invalidates almost any Kyurem set unless he DDs and gets an Iron Head flinch. Otherwise, it invalidates any other Kyurem set. Sub cannot work. He can't be Specs because we chew from that. Screamtail does a fantastic job of shutting that Pokemon down, and it also does a great job of shutting down a non-banded Urshifu. We actually have enough defense, 248 HP and 40 defense, to take 2 Urshifu Surging Strikes if it's not adamant, not boosting item. Our 76 def allows us to take 2 Kyurem Ice Beams, and then our speed allows us to guarantee outspeed the Urshifu. This mon's really cool for a couple of different reasons, mainly Encore locking setup threats. If he's not a banded Urshifu, I do expect Swords Dance, and if he's Swords Dance no Trailblaze, we can switch in Screamtail pretty easily once we find that out and just Encore it into whatever the case may be. We're Stealth Rock because we want to punish him switching around with things like non-boot Zapdos or the Ogerpon or the Tyranitar. We want to chip the Tyranitar down. Rocks are very nice because his only remover is Excadrill, and I don't really know if Excadrill is going to spin into us. We're Wish no Protect, which is a little uncomfortable, but more times than not, this Pokemon forces out whatever comes in and usually doesn't even take that much damage. So what we can do is we can Wish up, and if we feel like we can stay in and take the hit, great. If not, we can pivot into our bulky Embo or our bulky Landorus or our other bulky Pokemon in the back, which I'm very excited to talk about in a minute. And then we have Dazzling Gleam because it's pretty good damage, generally speaking. I don't want to get into a situation where we lose because our Screamtail has no attacking moves, so we can hit the Urshifu and the Kyurem for super effective damage. I do want to be mindful that both of which can be weakness policy though. Next up, pretty standard set. We haven't brought this yet this season. We're going to be Specs Phantasmo, the Dragapult, U-Turn, Draco, Shadow Ball, and Surf. Generally speaking, Dragapult does fantastic. We can just simply be max modest. We outspeed his whole team, rest in HP. Very simple set. This Pokemon spreads so much damage to our opponent. We force in the Tyranitar, we can U-turn on that, and we can go Bernardo, and we can start really doing some damage to stuff. If he doesn't bring Gardevoir, Draco is very, very spammable. If he does bring Gardevoir, and he doesn't bring Tyranitar for whatever reason, Shadow Ball is extremely spammable. Or if he does bring Tyranitar and Gardevoir, we can U-turn very, very easily as we force pivots. And if we have rocks up, obviously that's fantastic. And then we have Surf as like a last-ditch effort move just for the Excadrill and the Tyranitar to hit them both for some form of super effective damage. Dragapult's going to be our primary breaker this week. Not necessarily my favorite thing in the world, but I do think it definitely gets the job done. Next up, a fan favorite. Unfortunately, this thing was the MVP in the mocks, and it wasn't even close. This thing was by far the best Pokemon in the mocks. It's going to be Bramblegast. Obviously, he has Zapdos, he has Excadrill, he has Ogerpon, and we match up very well into all of the Urshifu Rapid. We match up, okay, Urshifu Rapid we don't match up super well into. I'll talk about that in a second. But we match up very well into pretty much everything that I just named, and we can Strength Sap on them very easily. But Rapid Spin, because I don't think you go hard Houndstone on this, and if you do, we outspeed, and I can pull through guys pretty easily. And we have dual stabs, Power Whip plus obviously our pull through guys, because they do very well and very good damage. We have a base 115 attack, so we're dishing out massive damage with Poltergeist and potentially even finding out items. I did kind of want Shadow Sneak on this set, but I think these 4 moves are pretty valuable, and I had a hard time picking literally any that didn't come. Strength Sap lets us beat a choiced Urshifu, a choiced Excadrill. It even lets us outspeed and potentially beat a Tyranitar if he is physical. We're 208 HP, 56 attack, 232 defense impish, and we've got 12 speed. We can live a banded Jolly Urshifu Ice Spinner after Sandstorm. Urshifu can be a big problem, and Ice Spinner specifically into the team that we are bringing is very spammable. But we can take that hit and we can pivot accordingly into some of our other Pokemon that can take that pretty well if that is the case. If he's not banded, we're able to Strength Sap him. If he's not Swords Dance, it's a little tough. We don't really beat Urshifu as well as I would like, but in a neutral state where it's Brambleghast on the field and Urshifu on the field, we do win that exchange as long as we hit Power Whip. We can outspeed a max speed Zapdos after a Rapid Spin, and then we went the rest, the remaining 56 into attack. I could have went to outspeed the Ogerpon after a spin, but then I would have been 0 attack investment, and the damage this thing deals is actually ridiculous. Bramble is actually very crucial to us winning this game. He's very important. He switches in on the Excadrill, he switches in on the Urshifu potentially. If it's locked in, we can find that out. Unfortunately, Bramble is very key to us winning this game, and I know a lot of you are pissing yourselves laughing right now. And then lastly, I got deep in my bag for this one. I slept last night. Obviously, I'm a human being. I slept on a set last night, right? The 6th slot was Rotom Wash for a very long time. It's not anymore. It was Rotom Wash, originally physically defensive, got smoked by Urshifu still. It didn't matter. And then we went with Scarf, got smoked by Urshifu still. It didn't matter. So I was like, damn, I do not like the Rotom in this slot. It is not as good as I want it to be. I toyed around with like an ability shield set for Mold Breaker as well. I was just like, I'm not enjoying the Rotom in this slot, and we were getting absolutely demolished by Houndstone. So I had to reach deep in my bag to find any sort of banded Houndstone resist on this team. We decided Charles Youth is going to be almost max physical defense. And I actually really like this set a lot. We can beat a bulky Houndstone. We almost never get 2-hit KO'd by Body Press. Obviously, we do have Will-O-Wisp, so we can burn him if that's the case. And we also only get 2-hit KO'd by Adamant Poltergeist, and I don't even know if he can be Adamant. I think he has to be Jolly to outspeed the Dragapult or the Scarf Chi-Yu. One of the two, if I remember correctly. And this is a John Jr. special set where Willow, because it burns the Tyranitar that wants to come in on us, and it also burns the Houndstone, it allows us to beat that. We'll Reflect, because most of his team is physical, and Random Screen John Jr. is back, baby. I had fun building with the team, you can tell by the Random Screen, and then we're going to be Dual Stabs, because Dual Stabs does great into this team. I also do think there is a situation where he's Assault Vested Urshifu, and if he does that, and that is his switch into Chi-Yu, we burn that, and that is a problem taken care of. We're 224 HP. Good lord. 248 defense. Bold. I am reading that correctly. 4 special attack and 32 speed. The 32 speed allows us to outspeed a limited speed Zapdos to our max speed Tyranitar. And then we went rock friendly number of HP in case we get knocked by Tyranitar at any point, with 4 remaining in special attack. And I like this set a lot because I think it'll catch him off guard. I think it helps with like the Ogerpon too. I'm very pleased with this set. We can also Wish Pass from Screamtail into this, and because of our low base HP stat, this gains a ton of health from that. And that is going to be the team, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited for this team. I think this is the best team I've built all season. I think it's going to be so fun to try to win with Bernardo and physically defensive Charles Youth. Obviously, we got Brambleghast on the squad too. We got a little bit of something for everybody. I'll call this one a family night. Let me know if you guys enjoy this team as much as I do. I'm very excited to face Viz, but we're going to go ahead and jump in there. Be sure to tune in tomorrow and do not miss this battle that is sure to be a good one. Thank you guys so much for watching. And for now, guys, this has been John Jr. signing off.